Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some PathOfExile 2 discussion. Welcome to day 14 of teaser season for PathOfExile 2's early access, which is going to be live in just over a week as I'm recording this video. Now, today we're going to have a short video and a long video, and this is the short one. The reason for this is that I wanted to split it up into the things that are spoiler light and spoiler heavy. You're watching the spoiler light side of this video. The spoiler heavy side is going to go through all of the support gems. Every single support gem in the game has been kind of maybe unintentionally announced by Grinding Gear Games, but it's not that anyone has violated a non-disclosure agreement or anything of the sort. Instead, what's happened is that they allowed people to play the game and record their footage, and someone, Havoc, had the very bright idea of mousing over every single support gem in a window that lets you look at every support gem. So we got stats for every support gem in the game. These might not be final, but they're the way that they were shown to a bunch of people. Additionally, Grinding Gear Games did give permission for this to be posted, so it's not like it's a leak in the true sense, but it might be too close for some people. What we've got today is one little announcement that is lore related from Grinding Gear Games, and then I have to make an announcement as well. Something about a bit of a problem that PathOfExile 2 content creators have been facing, where we've been getting endless amounts of spam from gold selling sites. So consider that part a bit of an anti-ad for those sites. What Grinding Gear Games today put out was a little bit of information on every class. Now this is posted from the point of view of an in-world narrator who is unreliable. So keep that in mind. This is going to include lies about these characters. It's not going to be everything truthful. And there's a really interesting difference. We're going to go through the 6 classes that will be available on day 1 and look at some wanted posters that have been posted around the town of Act 1. Wanted, the monk. Fanatical pagan on the loose, his fellow monks have been found murdered in their enclave, and now he sows discord and lunacy among the good people of Ogham. Hear tales of a dreamer or spot him wandering? Fetch a guard immediately. So here we get a picture of the way that the monk is being presented by the authorities of Act 1 to the common population, to people who aren't adventurers, who we aren't really going to interact with very much. Remember that the start of PathOfExile 2 is going to show all 6 of these characters on a scaffold, and then all of them are going to be hanged, but the person that you've picked as your character is going to end up getting away. So that's the monk. Secondly, we have the witch. Wanted, the witch. Beware, dear citizens of Ogham, a foul witch walks among us. Cast out by her coven, she wields pure darkness to spread death and decay across our lands. Should you see this woman, alert the guards immediately. And of course, there's this image of fires, of skeletons, undeath. This is the class power fantasy of the witch, but it's put in the most negative light possible because that is the goal of the town of Ogham. This is the goal, trying to poison the attitudes of the citizens against the player character. Contrast this to the third one, the warrior. This is a missing poster, not a wanted poster. Missing, the warrior. The adopted son of our dear blacksmith is missing. A brave man of the forge and proud citizen of Ogham, the Count demands his safe return. If you know his whereabouts, send word to the manor. A generous reward awaits you. So here we have an interesting story being told. The Count is not confident to talk badly about the warrior before the warrior's been captured. He thinks the most likely way to get the population to dog in the location of the warrior is by simply putting out an appeal, saying he's missing, and trying to find him that way. However, we get back to the ranger, and it's back to a wanted poster again. A vigilante archer at large. This Grelwood recluse murdered one of the Count's men while he upheld the law against a common thief. Stay out of her sights. If you see her, raise the alarm immediately. Justice must be served. So I think that tells a story of someone who is chaotic good, who obviously the Count is very unhappy about. Wanted, the mercenary. A killer prowls Ogham. Wanted across Oriath, this thug for hire fled and now plies his bloody trade in our lands. He cares not for law nor morality, only fulfilling his coin purse. Should you see this man, beware of his crossbow and alert the manor at once. And finally we have the Sorceress, who again is painted in the worst possible light. A Marraketh sorceress has been sighted in Ogham. Banished by her people, she bends the elements to her will, setting fire to our crops and calling down violent storms to ravage our lands. If you spot her, do not approach. Inform the manor immediately. I think it's just an interesting piece of lore. One of the things that grinding gear games generally do with in-game lore is present it in this limited fashion. You're not seeing the entire truth. You definitely don't have omniscient eyes watching important events happen. You instead see people's interpretations of them or people's interventions into them. This is an intervention by the Count of Ogham into the town life of Ogham and trying to poison attitudes against the player character before things get started. Okay, so I mentioned that I needed to do an announcement. This is somewhat of an anti-advertisement. You probably see a bunch of sponsored ad reads by YouTubers. Today, I wanted to do kind of the opposite. I and a whole bunch of other PathOfExile 2 content creators have been getting emails from gold-selling cheat sites, trying to get us to go into a business arrangement with them, promote their sites, shill their rubbish, and in exchange for that, potentially get money, although who knows if it would ever be paid. Now, there's a few things I want to say about these, but I will never take the money of these cheat sites. There's a bunch of reasons for this. Now, firstly, it's just that I would get banned if I did. Grinding gear games would cut ties with me straight away if I did, and that would be a disaster for me, obviously. But it's more than just that, because if that was the only factor at play, I'd be ambivalent as to whether people buy this rubbish or not. I wouldn't take their money, but I wouldn't care. Instead, I'd actually rather that these companies all went broke. The first reason you shouldn't buy gold from these sites is that it's cheating. I want to raise the name of someone who was once regarded as a champion and who is now treated with contempt. That name is Lance Armstrong. At one point, this guy was held in awe. He was regarded as dominant in his sport as Serena Williams was at her peak in women's tennis, or as Michael Jordan was in men's basketball at his peak. You know, absolutely hegemonic, absolutely dominant, unbeatable, the best. Nowadays, no one thinks of him as the GOAT. Everyone thinks of him as just a cheat. Do you want to be the Lance Armstrong of PathOfExile 2? If you do, all you need to do is just buy sufficient currency to buy your way to the top, and you can have that illusion of people thinking you're great for a little while, and then it all comes crashing down and suddenly you end up no longer the Michael Jordan, but instead as the Lance Armstrong. But also, if grinding gear games find out that you've done it, they don't regard it just as cheating, they regard it as bannable cheating. You might not get caught the first time, but at some point you probably will. There's a few other things though that these sites do that are a bit less known and that are pretty nefarious. Firstly, they sell power leveling services. This involves you providing your username and password to the site. Now I'm sure that they make all sorts of promises never to do anything nefarious with that, but you know what they're going to be doing. They're going to try and log in using your username and password on a whole bunch of other services, and everything they find that you might have reused the password on, they're going to take advantage of that. If they find out that you use the same password for PayPal as you use for PathOfExile, then guess what? You're going to find your account drained. If they find out that you use the same password on your email, then they're going to change it and they've got complete control of your email, which then means that they can start causing you no end of trouble in terms of just controlling the rest of your online presence. If you use it for Facebook, they'll start posting crypto spam rubbish or all sorts of things like that on Facebook. All of these sorts of problems come up, but also they're going to do the same thing to your game accounts. Not just PathOfExile, they'll check your World of Warcraft account if you have one. They'll check a whole bunch of other MMOs. And then they'll come back to your PathOfExile account. They'll let you play in peace for a few weeks. And then at some point in a few weeks' time, they'll be like, oh, has this person made some progress? Well, they have. They have made a bunch of progress. Cool, we're going to steal all of that. So if you sign up for the power leveling service and you hand over your username and password, you will really get burnt. One of the sources of the currency and items that these sites love to sell is compromised accounts. One of the things that these sites absolutely thrive off is an increase in the number of compromised accounts by any means necessary. And so there's been a number of high profile cases of accounts getting hijacked by various means, but there's also just a constant undercurrent of it happening to people. And when you deal with these sites, you're encouraging that to continue. Another thing these sites will do is they will steal guides from people. There's a couple of ways they do this. It can be with attribution or it can be without. Honestly, I prefer it to be done without attribution. The without attribution is just a straight up plagiarism, straight up content theft. They'll just take a write-up and then they'll repost it as though it was their own idea. The more insidious version though is when they take a guide that's well respected, post it on their site, and then they'll use the name of the content creator it's associated with. For example, Pox. He's well known for his Righteous Fire guides in PathOfExile 1, and he would never deal with these cheat sites. But one of them could easily steal his guide on Righteous Fire, and then down the bottom say, for your first purchase of gold, use code POX and we'll give you 10% off. That's a way for a site that has no credibility to steal some from someone that has a lot. And that's something else that's really insidious about these places. Another thing they do is they promote actively terrible guides. Part of the purpose there is they want you to continue struggling, because if you do start getting to the point that you feel super strong, super in control, then you're not going to go back to their site again, are you? So if they can suck you into using an actively bad guide and hold down your character power level a long time, then they can keep selling you more and more illusionary temporary power in order to try and make it feel like you're making progress. But ultimately, you'd make much more if you weren't using their site. But finally, and perhaps the most important, I love the word enshittification. These sites promote the enshittification of gaming. In Diablo 2, Blizzard did the right thing and tried to clamp down on the third-party cheat market. They weren't very effective at it, but they did make some serious attempts at doing so. However, ultimately they lost the battle. But a new generation of executives within Blizzard would see this and go, there's a lot of money going through this black market. What if it was to come to us? And so the entire release game design of Diablo 3 was twisted around the idea of making it so that the real money auction house would be central to the path of least resistance for progression. It's not that it was absolutely necessary. Plenty of people did get into Inferno difficulty without it, but the path of least resistance was to get yourself up to a reasonable level, then buy a couple of items off the real money auction house. Oh, guess what? Blizzard got its 15% cut every time that you did that. And so you would wind up basically buying a cheat code, partly from the developer, but also partly from another player. Now, this got even worse, of course, in Diablo Immortal. Now, I'm calling out specifically ARPGs here. There's plenty of other ones that have also gone down this same route, as well as games, to their credit, like Last Epoch and Diablo 4 for that matter, that have not. But Diablo Immortal was the peak example of enshittification of ARPGs. This is an example of a game that was designed with so many systems that would eventually set you up to fail. They wouldn't do it quickly, so that they'd sort of build up some sunk cost fallacy first, then they'd set you up to fail, then they would sell you a cheat code to get you over this point where you're failing, and then they would do this again and again and again. That was essentially the core gameplay loop of Diablo Immortal. Play the game, get too weak to play the game, pull out your credit card, play the game again, and this time you're dominating for a bit, and then eventually that power that you'd bought declines, and you end up needing to cheat again. This is enshittification of gaming, and ultimately, one of the best things that could happen if all of the gold-selling cheat sites were to go broke, then it would really strike a blow against this enshittification. And we would see more Last Epochs, more PathOfExile 1s, more PathOfExile 2s, and less Diablo Immortals. And that is probably the best reason of all to not patronize these cheat sites. So if you've patronized these sites in the past, be better in the future. If you haven't patronized them in the past, don't do so now. You'll end up burned, you'll end up having less fun than you would without them as well, but you'll end up getting burnt, and you'll contribute to other people getting burnt as well. And to Cassie from one of these sites, you know who you are. Stop sending me the spam emails. I'm not going to shield your rubbish. I hope your company goes broke. Anyways, that's enough of an anti-ad at the moment. I am doing a merchandise discount at the moment, 17.3% off things on my store with Fourth Wall. That does not include shipping, so feel free to have a look at that. You'll need the password Crangled for that, and I'll put a link down in the description below. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there. May your Varlobs have interesting results, and don't buy them from gold-selling cheat sites.